Hello and welcome to another episode of Nightcap with Nightcat, the kitsch-minded show where we talk about toys, boys, and life's other joys. I am your host, Nightcat. Thank you for being here. Episode 32. I am so excited because we have got a great show coming up. I've got a CATSPIRACY Corner. We're going to talk about spontaneous human combustion. Is it possible? Maybe. I don't know. And then we're going to get into the LITTERBOX. I have found the best collection of stupid criminals I think I have ever found. Get ready for some real doozy stories. But before we get into any of that, I wanted to talk about something that happened the other night on the Nightcat True Crime Walking Tour. For those of you that don't know, I am a true crime tour guide. I take people through downtown Salt Lake and I talk about stories of crimes that happen there, and it's so fun. I am having the time of my life doing these tours. But the other night, I had a group out, and as I'm guiding them through the city, there's a dead bird on the sidewalk. So I turned to everyone, I was like, hey, dead bird, dead bird, dead bird. And the people near me knew what was going on, so they moved aside, but the people behind them had no idea, and they thought I was chanting. So they all go on, dead bird, and one gal stepped right on top of that dead bird. It was the best thing I've ever seen in my life. I mean, it was really gross, and I'm sure she was a little traumatized, but I warned them. So from now on, if you're ever walking right next to me and I start screaming dead animal, just assume there's going to be a dead animal right there, alright? If you want to find out more about the Nightcat True Crime Walking Tours, check out nightcatshow.com. NIGHTCAT show.com. Alright, I think it's time for us then to get into the stupid news. Let's get into the LITTERBOX. Ew, what stinks in here? The LITTERBOX is the part of the show where I go through all the stupid news and I only bring you back the best stuff. You know, that way you're not reading all that stupid news and it gives me something to do with my day. And I want to get started, of course, where all stupid news really originates. Florida. It is like the Fertile Crescent of stupid news. I love it. There was a Florida man who was arrested and slapped with armed robbery charges after he held a store clerk at knife point over a candy bar. So the 49-year-old man, he goes into a Wawa convenience store, like a gas station, and he asks the clerk for some free food. And the clerk's like, nah, man, I can't do that. I'm sorry. And so he pulls out a knife and holds it at the clerk. And he says, and I quote, "Don't make me do something stupid for a Snickers." Which I think is a better tagline for Snickers than "you aren't you when you're hungry." Don't make me do something stupid for a Snickers. Marketing teams, get on it. The clerk is like, well, this is not worth getting stabbed over, and he hands over a Snickers bar. But the guy ends up not taking it, and he just darts out of the store. Police eventually were able to track him down, and you know what his story was? He wasn't trying to stab the clerk. He was trying to trade that knife for the candy bar, and the clerk must have just misunderstood. Alright, bud. Alright, the story that has been blowing up everywhere, the one that you've probably been keeping an eye on anyway. The Nirvana baby! The man whose naked baby picture was used on the Nevermind Nirvana cover. It's like iconic. You've definitely seen that naked baby. He is now suing the band as well as like art directors and executives, record labels, all of these people claiming that they trafficked his nude image as child pornography in order to increase sales. And it's left him with like some lifelong trauma, and he's seeking restitution of $150,000 from 17 different defendants. And again, these people include former members of the band like Dave Grohl. They include anybody who took the pictures, who sold the pictures. And what he's saying is that his parents never actually signed a release and none of them ever got any compensation for using that photo. And he feels used, and he thinks that it is wrong for a record label to use child pornography, quote unquote, in order to sell albums. Which, yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm a little with him on that. It is definitely, you know, a little meh. He never seemed to really have a problem with it before, or at least not one that he talked about publicly, because he continued to recreate that photo for the album's like big anniversary. So he did it on the 10th anniversary, the 15th anniversary, anniversary and the 25th anniversary, and they just kept re-releasing that album cover with him growing at those different anniversaries. So he's definitely some way involved and still working with the band. He also has the album title Nevermind tattooed on his chest. Though, here's where it starts to get really interesting, because in 2016, he did an interview with GQ Australia, and he says that the band snuffed him at an art show. He's a painter now, and all he asked was that someone from the band submit some art into the show, and he says that he got directed to like lawyers and managers, which is pretty typical Hollywood. I wouldn't hold that specifically against the members of the band. But this guy took it as a personal affront, and he said specifically, quote, "Why am I still on their cover if I'm not a big deal?" Which leads me to believe that if they had just sent like some sort of artwork, or if Dave Grohl had made an appearance, then maybe this lawsuit wouldn't be happening in the first place. Which is almost exactly a storyline on The Office. No one goes to Pam's art show, so she runs across the fire and she tells Jim she loves him. It's beautiful. Oh, I love that scene. A Florida woman was arrested after exposing herself during a steamy video chat with her boyfriend. And like, why would that be an issue, right? They're adults, they can do what they want. Well, the thing is that the boyfriend is in jail, and the video chat was taking place at the facility, at the correctional facility. She had traveled to the Charlotte County Jail, and there they have this video conference visiting room where the family, the loved ones, whoever can go in and visit inmates who are in separate facilities on the prison's campus, or the jail's campus. So she was in there, and she was doing basically a FaceTime with her boyfriend, and after an hour of really vulgar, steamy, tennis talk, if you will, they were talking about playing tennis an awful lot, she exposed her chest to him. And when that happened, the guards, who are absolutely monitoring these interactions, immediately shut down the video call. She goes home, and then she ends up getting arrested a couple days later because she exposed herself in a public place. And you know what she had to say to the police? Quote, "I cannot believe showing Cody my boobs got me arrested." I can't believe it either, girl. I don't think that's fair. And finally, a woman in Wisconsin was arrested after she accidentally shot her friend while she was playing with his cat. So here's the situation. The 19-year-old girl, she's over at her 21-year-old friend's apartment, and she reaches into a side table and she finds a gun with a laser sight, like a handgun with a laser sight. So she turns on the laser sight and she starts wiggling the gun around, trying to get the cat to chase the laser like it's a laser pointer. And the guy said that there's nothing really to worry about because he doesn't have a magazine in it. And then as she's waving it around, she shoots him right in the thigh. It goes through his thigh into the oven behind him, and they end up having to go to the hospital. So she gets arrested and charged with causing injury by negligent use of a weapon. Now here's the thing, they patched him up and then he got arrested too because he was in possession of a firearm while on felony probation, which you are not allowed to do. And his argument was that he didn't have a magazine in it. Well, you at least had one round in it. If it wasn't a full magazine, you still had one round, bro. Which is what, you know, ended up landing you in jail. All I'm concerned about now is who is going to feed that cat after that traumatic incident. Justice for the cat. Let's get that cat home. And that is the litter box. Let's dive into the toy collection with another Sunken Treasure. Sunken Treasure is the part of the show where we dig through my toy collection and we play with something awesome. This is one of my favorite things in the entire world! Here's what you need to know about collecting Jurassic Park merchandise. They didn't make a ton of great merch, in my opinion, for the first Jurassic Park movie. But then The Lost World came out, and they basically made that movie in order to sell merch, and they had the best toys. This is from the 1996 release of Jurassic Park: The Lost World. This is the T-Rex. Now, I have shown off the T-Rex before on an episode of Morning Announcements a while back, but I wanted to show him off again because he has a brother now. I didn't know they made other ones. Look at him. It's going to be hard to have both of them on at the same time. So we got now a Velociraptor, and look how bouncy his hands are. And we got a T-Rex. And then the banner falls down. Damn it, I should have gotten a banner. What was I thinking? I'm gonna have to figure out how to do that in post-editing. I don't know how to do that in post-editing. There's a banner that falls behind me. So good. Now, this one, the T-Rex, I got on Shop Goodwill a while ago, and I feel like I got a pretty good deal with him. I got him for 13 bucks on shopgoodwill.com. Of course, you know my favorite place to go, shopgoodwill.com. And these usually run anywhere from like 20 to 50 bucks depending on the condition. This would not fetch $50 because he's covered in paint on his neck and stuff, but he's still really, really cool. Now this one, I found just floating behind a shelf at the Savers. I didn't even know it was part of the Lost World collection until I looked it up at home, because they usually only have like Jurassic World stuff at Savers. So I figured this was like a new movie thing. Now, he doesn't have the speaker box in the top of his mouth like this one does, but this one's speaker box doesn't work anyway, so I don't feel like I'm missing out on a whole lot. So I have a little Jurassic Park collection upstairs in my room, and these guys face opposite directions on my bedposts, and it's just dinosaurs everywhere. It's amazing! You know, I think we're supposed to be enemies, but I can't help falling in love with you. How long do we have before they come back? I don't know. But all I can think about right now is kissing you. And then it gets really violent. The end. And that is Sunken Treasure! Alright, let's go through a traumatizing event from my past in NIGHTCAT Classic Tales. NIGHTCAT Classic Tales is the part of the show where I relive something traumatizing, or really amusing in this case, for your entertainment. I'm gonna tell you why I think the hit... Wait, when did it come out? Hold on. Should have looked this up before I started recording. Now the internet won't load. 1990. I am going to tell you why I think that the 1990 hit film Pretty Woman starring Richard Gere and Julia Roberts is a 4th of July classic. I grew up poor. And poor isn't just about the amount of money in your bank account, it's a lifestyle. Being poor is an attitude. We just have a very different way of life than people who are affluent will say. And one thing about being poor is that we never got any of our animals fixed. Which means that our indoor-outdoor cats usually went out and came back with a belly full of babies. Well, the first time this happened, me and my sister were sitting on the couch watching Pretty Woman. I could not have been more than 10 years old when this happens. Is Pretty Woman a movie that a 10-year-old should be watching? Definitely not. Were my parents home to stop me? No, because it was summer and both my parents had to work. Again, being poor is a lifestyle. We're sitting there and she's in the bubble bath and she's got the headphones on and she does a little poo down into the tub. And then we hear just the teeniest, tiniest little meows coming out from under the couch. So we pull it out and we kind of push up the little fabric part of it, and we see that Chloe, my beautiful angel orange tabby who I loved so much, had given birth to 3 babies on the 4th of July. And now whenever I watch Pretty Woman, all I can think about are fresh kittens, lots of goo, placenta, but also just, I was so happy to have my little baby cats and they were just the best. We tried to keep all 3 of the babies, but that ended up becoming like a whole thing because 4 cats is too many cats. One might argue more than 2 cats is too many cats. I live with 3 and I guess I would say that. So what do? Poor people stuff. I took those cats out in a cardboard box, 2 of them, and I sat in front of the Reams grocery store, and I was like, hey, does anyone want a free cat? And that's how we used to get cats. Long before, like, things like that were super frowned upon, that's how everyone ended up with a cat. No one adopted cats. That wasn't a thing. You either just went out to the field and found one, or one showed up on your porch, or a chubby little white kid holding a cardboard box full of cats hands you one. That's how you used to get cats. It's not like that anymore. Make America great again. That's awful. Please spay and neuter your animals. And that is another Nightcat Classic Tale. Alright, I hope no one bursts into flames because we are going to talk about spontaneous human combustion in the CATSPIRACY Corner! CATSPIRACY Corner is where I tell you about a conspiracy theory that I've been looking into. Not because I believe in every conspiracy theory, but just because conspiracy theories are fun. And we're going to talk about spontaneous human combustion. Let's start, though, in the 60s with the story of a woman named Helen Conway. She died in 1964. And all that remained of her body, and I'm not going to show the picture. I went back and forth on this because I was going to show the picture, but then I was like, no, I really shouldn't. The picture of the body is easily accessible if you go look up Helen Conway, spontaneous combustion, Helen Conway. But all you see is basically her top half is completely disintegrated, burned away, and her legs are completely intact, sticking out from the chair. The interesting thing as well is that none of the surrounding objects are burned. It is literally just from her waist up and the wall behind her that are just completely inflamed. Fire marshals who were on the scene said that it must have taken her body less than 20 minutes to burn up like that. And to put that into perspective, the average cremation takes anywhere from 2 to 4 hours. So even though I understand that they weren't completely cremating her there in that chair, it's still pretty wild that her body was able to reduce that quickly in a matter of 20 minutes. So how did she just suddenly burst into flame? And is she the only one? No, apparently there are reports of this fairly often. As recently as 2010 in Ireland, there was a 76-year-old man who burned to a crisp. And fire marshals there were investigating. They looked at the fireplace. They go, nah, it couldn't have been the fireplace. Fireplace looks fine. They didn't find a trace of accelerant anywhere. And he was completely burned, but only the floor beneath his feet and the ceiling above him were burned in the room. No other parts of the room were damaged at all. And they looked into this forever. He died in December of 2012. And it wasn't until 2011 that the coroner finally came out and said, I cannot find any other reasonable explanation that this happened other than spontaneous human combustion. And this is not just some crack coroner. He's been doing this forever. He's been the coroner for like 20 years over there. And seriously, it took him like 9 months to finally come out and say, I guess that's what happened. He labored over that decision for 9 months because he's like, everyone's gonna think I'm crazy. Everyone is gonna think I'm crazy. And I think that that's the most reasonable thing I've ever heard. Take your time and really think about it, bud. And there are written accounts of spontaneous human combustion going back as far as the 1700s. So this is not even a new thing either. So what are the theories? How is this happening? How are people just suddenly burning to a crisp for absolutely no reason? Well, if you watch South Park, it's because they hold their farts in. But there are other reasons. The really popular one back in the day was that everyone assumed that it was only happening to alcoholics, and that they were drinking so much and their body was so saturated, like their sweat and their skin had so much booze in it, that any exposure to any flame would just light them right up, which I think is a fun theory, but I know a lot of drunks who smoke an awful lot that I think can disprove that. I grew up in a trailer park. What do you want from me? A book was written in 1996 called The Entrancing Flame, and that one suggests that emotional distress is the reason for it. So if you're sad or frustrated or angry or depressed or anything like that, that causes the mitochondria in your cells to explode, which releases a lot of oxygen and hydrogen, which is a volatile mix, and eventually it'll just, you go up into flames. I think that is the most ridiculous crack thing in the entire world. And sometimes people act like, oh, well, if it was in a book, it has to be true. Not anyone can just publish a book. Yes, they can. They absolutely can. This guy said your own mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell, we all know, is going to make you explode. And I just don't think that that's correct. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe he'll be vindicated one day, but that sounds like some mumbo-jumbo Dr. Oz nonsense. Scientists in New York were testing people's bodies for the amount of static electricity, and what they found out is that some people just naturally retain more static electricity in their body than others. And they think that it's possible that people who have too much static electricity in their body are able to ignite a flame and go up real fast. Now, I think those are all a little bit ridiculous. I like the alcohol one, but I don't think it's true. Here's one that I think is really interesting. I liked this one a lot. It's called the wick theory. So one thing that no one was really talking about with that Helen Conway was that she was a heavy gal and she was a chain smoker. So the theory goes this way. Basically, if she was covered in like a blanket or cloth of some kind and she fell asleep, dropped a cigarette onto the blanket, that blanket would ignite like a wick. She would then be using her fat in her body to fuel the flame, and it would burn almost like a candle, creating a super hyper localized flame that doesn't expand out because all of the fuel and accelerant are just like right there on her body. That would also explain why it didn't start traveling anywhere, because it was all just sort of on top burning up. I think that that is one of the most interesting theories ever. Despite all of this, you hear a lot of stories, you hear a lot of theories. The mainstream scientific community says that there has never been a confirmed eyewitness account to spontaneous human combustion. So no one has ever been able to definitively prove that there was not an external source causing the person to burst into flame. So until they see that, and there's a documented case, which hopefully we'll see soon because there's cameras literally everywhere, so if it's true, we'll freaking see it. But without a credible eyewitness, they're just not willing to accept that that is a real thing. So maybe, but probably not. And that is another episode of Nightcap with Nightcat, episode 32. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, comment on the video. I love interacting with everyone. Give me some feedback. Tell me what you like about the show. If you don't like something about the show, you can tell me, but be nice about it because I'm very sensitive. We have more Nightcat true crime walking tours coming up this weekend. Visit nightcatshow.com to check out your tickets. Also, patreon.com/Nightcat Show. This is how I am making everything work. This is how I'm kind of keeping it all afloat. It's expensive to kind of run this show, and my patrons help me out more than you could ever know. So thank you, patrons. I do have a new patron. One thing you get when you become a Patreon patron is you get a shout out. So Allie Arbuckle, thank you for being a patron, you beautiful angel. If you'd like to help support Nightcat, keep Nightcat on the air, keep the true crime tours going, anything else that we've been doing, check out nightcatshow.com. You can join at either $3 or $5. And hey, while you're at it, why don't you check out the Curiosity Killed Nightcat podcast? It is a true crime podcast that I host. I really love diving into these stories and telling you a really fun, interesting story every week. I am back to posting them, hopefully pretty consistently. I got a little behind this summer, but hey, you know, you've been cool about it. If you're a Patreon patron, you get those podcasts a week before anybody else. So you actually have episode 13 sitting in the Patreon feed right now, but episode 12 is available for everyone. Both of them are exceptional serial killer episodes. They're serial killers you might not have heard of before, but whoa, so spooky. So go check out Curiosity Killed Nightcat on your favorite podcast directory. Just look, Curiosity Killed Nightcat. Hey, thank you so much for being so wonderful and supporting the show and watching my content and following me on social media. And hey, have a lovely week. I will see you next week. Bye.